Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into AI today, and more specifically, all the warnings that are coming out about AI.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. You know, these warnings aren't just coming from some random people on the internet.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
these are warnings that are coming from the pioneers in the field.
The people who created it.
Yeah, people who have dedicated their lives to building this technology.
Yeah, and we have some fascinating sources lined up for you today. Recent news articles, interviews, expert opinions, the whole shebang. And we're going to try to unpack all of this for you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And really what's so interesting about this deep dive is we're talking about someone like Geoffrey Hinton,
Oh, yeah.
the godfather of AI, right?
Yeah.
Walking away from Google and risking his reputation to speak out against AI.
I mean, just to give a little bit of background here
Yeah, please.
for the listener.
Hmm.
Hinton's work on neural networks back in the 1980s, it was really groundbreaking stuff. At the time, it was considered almost fringe science.
Right.
But it laid the foundation for the AI boom that we're seeing today.
Yeah, it's incredible when you think about it. From self-driving cars to those chatbots that everyone's using now.
Yeah.
It all goes back to his work in the 80s, so.
And he won a Turing Award alongside Yoshua Bengio and Jan LeCun in 2019 for his contributions to AI.
Wow.
And that's like the Nobel Prize of computing.
Yeah, exactly. But here's where it gets interesting, right? So in 2023, Hinton leaves Google, and he does it so he can speak openly and freely about the dangers he sees in AI. And he's not really holding back either. He's calling some of the potential outcomes quite scary.
Yeah.
And he's even gone so far as to say that he regrets some of his life's work.
Wow.
That's a pretty big statement, coming from someone who's, been at the forefront of AI research for decades.
Yeah.
So what exactly has changed his perspective? What's he seeing that's making him so worried?
Well, I think one of his biggest concerns is just the sheer speed at which AI is advancing. He's on record saying that he always believed that artificial general intelligence.
And it's AGI, right?
Yeah.
AGI.
For folks who aren't familiar.
Right. Artificial general intelligence.
Mhm.
That's basically AI that can perform any intellectual task that a human being can.
Right.
He always believed that was, like, decades away, but he doesn't believe that anymore.
Wow. He doesn't think it's that far off.
He doesn't think it's that far off.
I mean, that's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah.
This is not some random person on the internet saying this.
Exactly.
This is Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI.
Yeah, the godfather himself. And, he's pointed specifically to the rapid progress in large language models, like the one that powers ChatGPT, for example.
Right.
And he believes these models are demonstrating a level of understanding that's just far beyond what anyone expected
Right.
just a few years ago. So I guess the question that's on a lot of people's minds is, so what? What's the big deal if AI becomes more intelligent? Isn't that what we've been working towards all along?
Well, and that's the question that's at the heart of all of this.
Yeah.
What happens when AI becomes so intelligent that it starts to set its own goals?
Right.
And what happens if those goals don't align with our own goals as humans?
That's where this whole, sci-fi scenario comes into play.
Right.
The robots taking over and all that.
Exactly. And Hinton argues that, look, we're just not prepared for that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
We don't fully understand how these advanced AI systems work.
Right.
And we don't have any safeguards in place
Yeah.
to prevent them from becoming a threat.
Okay, I can see why he's worried. I really can. But I guess I'm curious, is everyone in the AI community as alarmed as Hinton is?
I think it's safe to say that not everyone is hitting the panic button just yet. But his warnings have definitely sparked a debate. There's a whole spectrum of opinions on this issue.
Sure.
Yoshua Bengio, for example, another Turing Award winner who's worked closely with Hinton, shares some of those concerns.
Okay.
He's also worried about the potential for AI to become uncontrollable and dangerous.
Wow.
And he's been particularly vocal about the need for government regulation.
Right.
To ensure that AI development remains safe and beneficial. He's really advocating that we need to start thinking about these issues now before it's too late.
So we've got Hinton and Bengio, two big names in AI, really sounding the alarm bells. What about Jan LeCun? He's the third Turing Award winner, right?
Yeah, he's the third one. Where does he stand?
Yeah, where does he stand on all of this?
Well, LeCun, who's the chief AI scientist at Meta right now,
Okay.
has a more optimistic view, I think.
Okay.
He acknowledges that there are risks associated with AI, but he believes that ultimately those risks can be managed.
Okay.
He argues that AI will be a force for good and that we shouldn't let fear stifle its development.
So a little bit more optimistic than Hinton and Bengio.
A little bit more, yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting. We've got this whole range of opinions.
Yeah, it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum, and I think that's a good thing. That means we're having these conversations.
Absolutely.
So, even though there's this range of opinions out there, Hinton's concerns are definitely getting a lot of attention. So let's dig into that a little bit deeper. What specifically is he worried about?
Well, I think one of the most chilling things that he said is about the potential for AI to actually manipulate people.
Really?
He believes that as AI systems become more intelligent, they're also going to become more adept at understanding human psychology.
Okay, I don't quite follow that. How could AI learn to manipulate people?
Well, think about it like this. He uses this analogy of AI reading all the world's literature.
Wow. Okay.
Right? All those novels, plays, historical texts. Imagine an AI that can analyze all of human history, all of our stories, all of our emotional responses.
That's kind of a creepy thought.
And his point is that this kind of AI could potentially learn how to exploit our weaknesses.
Oh, wow.
How to play on our emotions, how to get us to do things that are not in our best interests.
It's like something out of a dystopian novel or something.
Exactly, and that's a fear that's shared by a lot of AI ethicists.
Yeah.
They worry about the potential for AI to be used for propaganda, for disinformation, for all sorts of malicious purposes.
So it's not just about AI becoming super intelligent.
Yeah.
It's about how that intelligence could be used.
Absolutely.
And who might be controlling it.
And who's controlling it.
Right.
Exactly. And Hinton's argument is, look, we need to be thinking about these issues now before it's too late.
Okay, so we've got the potential for manipulation, the fear of AI becoming uncontrollable. Are there other things? Are there other dangers that he's worried about?
Yeah, he's also, very concerned about the potential for AI to be used in warfare.
Oh, wow.
Imagine autonomous weapon systems.
Oh, God.
They can make life or death decisions without any human intervention.
Yeah, that's kind of a terrifying thought.
It is a terrifying thought. It's a very real possibility. And to be fair, he's been speaking out against this possibility for years.
Yeah.
He believes that the development of autonomous weapons would be a catastrophic mistake.
Right.
And he's actually called for an international ban on these types of weapons.
So we've got manipulation, we've got loss of control, we've got the potential for AI-powered warfare. I mean, this is heavy stuff.
It's heavy stuff. It really is.
A lot to take in.
And it's worth noting that, Hinton's story is not a simple one. He doesn't see AI as purely a force for evil,
Okay.
I think he still uses AI tools in his daily life.
Really?
Even some of the ones that he's expressed concerns about, like GPT-4, for example.
Wait, hold on. So he's warning us about this technology.
Yeah.
But he's still using it himself.
He is. And I think it's because, he recognizes the potential downsides of AI.
Okay.
But he also recognizes its incredible power and potential for good.
So he's kind of seeing both sides of the coin here.
Exactly.
It's not all good. It's not all bad.
Yeah. And that brings us to kind of an interesting twist in his story. Because despite these warnings, he won a Nobel Prize in Physics in 2024.
Wait, really?
Alongside John Hopfield for their pioneering work on artificial neural networks.
So the guy who's warning us about the dangers of AI wins the Nobel Prize for his work on AI.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it just goes to show how complex.
It's not a simple issue.
It's not simple at all.
There's a lot of nuance here.
A lot of nuance. And I think, it's like he's saying, hey, look, this technology is incredibly powerful. It can do amazing things, but we need to be really careful with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we need to proceed with caution.
Proceed with caution. Yeah.
Be aware of the potential risks and benefits.
Oh,
Okay, so it sounds like we need to find some kind of balance, right? Between, recognizing the potential benefits of AI, but also acknowledging and addressing the very real risks.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
It's all about finding that balance.
All right. Well, we're going to explore that balance a little bit more in the next part of this deep dive. We'll look at some of the specific ways that AI is already impacting our lives.
Yeah.
Both positively and negatively. But before we move on, I want to pose a question to our listeners out there. We've talked a lot about the potential risks of AI, but what are your thoughts? Are you excited about the future of AI? Or are you feeling a bit apprehensive? Let us know what you're thinking. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of AI. Before we were talking about, Geoffrey Hinton and his warnings about the potential dangers of AI and how those warnings are, creating a lot of debate and discussion. But I think it's important now to kind of shift gears a little bit and explore how AI is already impacting our world, even in its current state. Even before we get to this potential, AGI future.
Yeah, I think that's a really crucial point.
Yeah.
We can talk about these long-term implications and the existential threats and all of that, but it's equally important to kind of ground ourselves in the present and really understand how this technology is already shaping our lives. Sometimes in subtle ways that we might not even be aware of.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest areas where we're seeing the impact of AI is in decision-making processes. Think about all those algorithms that are being used now to determine loan approvals, job applications, even criminal sentencing. These algorithms are designed to be objective and efficient, but there's a growing concern that they can actually perpetuate existing societal biases.
Yeah, that's a very real concern, and it really stems from the fact that these algorithms are often trained on massive data sets that reflect historical inequalities. So, for example, an algorithm that's used to predict recidivism rates.
And that's basically the likelihood that someone who's been convicted of a crime will commit another crime, right?
Exactly. So, an algorithm that's designed to predict that might be trained on data that reflects, systemic biases in the criminal justice system.
So if historically, certain groups have been disproportionately targeted or incarcerated, that bias could actually be baked into the algorithm itself.
Exactly. And that could lead to a situation where the algorithm is unfairly predicting that individuals from those groups are more likely to reoffend, even if there's no real evidence to support that prediction.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty disturbing thought. It's almost like we're automating discrimination.
It's a very serious concern, and it really highlights the need for greater transparency and accountability in the development and deployment of these AI systems. We really need to make sure that these algorithms are not simply replicating and amplifying existing societal inequalities.
Yeah, so how do we address that? I mean, it sounds like a really complex problem.
It is complex, but there are things that we can do. First of all, I think we need to be much more aware of the potential for bias in these systems. We can't just assume that because the algorithm is based on data, it's inherently objective or neutral.
So a healthy dose of skepticism is in order.
Absolutely. And beyond that, we need to be pushing for greater transparency from the companies and institutions that are developing and using these algorithms. We need to know what data they're trained on, how they're being used, and what steps are being taken to try to mitigate potential bias.
It sounds like we also need to have a much broader societal conversation about, the values that we want to embed in these systems.
Yeah, that's a crucial point. The development of AI shouldn't just be driven by technological progress. It needs to be guided by ethical considerations as well.
Right, and that means having, open and honest discussions about the potential implications of this technology, even if those discussions are, uncomfortable or challenging.
Yeah, I think that's key. And it's not just about preventing harm. It's also about ensuring that AI is used to create a more just and equitable world.
Okay, so we've talked about, the potential for bias in decision-making algorithms. What are some other areas where AI is already having a real impact?
Well, another area where we're seeing really significant advancements is in the field of robotics. AI-powered robots are already being used in manufacturing, in healthcare, even in agriculture.
Yeah, I've seen those videos of robots like performing surgery. It's amazing, but it's also a little unnerving.
I understand that feeling. It's natural to feel a little bit apprehensive when you see, machines taking on tasks that were traditionally performed by humans. But I think it's important to remember that these robots are tools. And like any tool, they can be used for good or for ill.
So it's not the technology itself that's good or bad, it's how we choose to use it.
Exactly. And as with any powerful technology, there are potential risks and benefits that we need to, carefully consider.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those risks. What are some of the potential downsides of AI-powered robotics?
Well, I think one concern that a lot of people have is the impact on employment.
Yeah.
As robots become more sophisticated, they're able to perform a wider range of tasks, which could lead to job displacement in certain sectors.
Right, the robots taking over our jobs.
Yeah, it's a valid concern, and it's something that we need to be thinking about proactively. As a society, we need to figure out how to adapt to these changes in the workforce.
Hmm.
Perhaps by investing in retraining programs for workers who are displaced by automation.
So it's not about, stopping technological progress. It's about managing that progress
Yeah,
in a way that benefits everyone.
in a way that benefits everyone. Exactly. And it's important to remember, too, that AI-powered automation can also create new jobs and opportunities. For example, the development and maintenance of these robotic systems is going to require skilled workers.
So it's not a simple equation of, robots replacing humans. It's much more nuanced than that.
Right. And I think it's really important to avoid those kind of simplistic narratives
Yeah.
that either demonize or glorify AI.
Right.
The reality is much more complex.
Okay, so we've talked about, the potential for bias in algorithms. We've talked about the impact of AI-powered robotics on the workforce. Are there other areas that we should be thinking about?
Well, another area where AI is having a really profound impact, I think, is in the realm of information and communication.
Hmm.
Think about social media platforms, search engines, and the vast amount of data that these platforms are collecting about our online behavior.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that, companies like Google and Facebook are using AI to analyze our data and target us with ads and content.
Exactly. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with, targeted advertising, it does raise concerns about privacy, about manipulation, and the potential for echo chambers. If we're only being exposed to information that confirms our existing beliefs, it can be really difficult to engage in meaningful dialogue and debate.
So AI could actually be contributing to the polarization and the division that we're seeing in society.
It's definitely a possibility that we need to be aware of. And it really highlights the need for greater critical thinking skills
Hmm.
in the digital age. We need to be able to discern reliable information from misinformation. And we need to be aware of the ways in which our online behavior is being tracked and analyzed.
It's almost like we're all becoming subjects in a giant AI experiment, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, it's a provocative thought, and it's one that we all need to be grappling with, I think. The reality is that AI is already deeply embedded in our lives, and its influence is only going to grow in the years to come.
So what does this mean for us as individuals? What can we do to navigate this AI-powered world in a way that's both informed and empowered?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's one that I think we're going to explore in much more detail in the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. Well, before we move on, I'd love to hear from our listeners out there. What are your thoughts on the ways in which AI is already impacting your life? Are you excited about the possibilities? Are you feeling a bit overwhelmed? Let us know, and we'll be right back after a short break to continue our exploration of the world of AI. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been, exploring the world of AI, talking about those warnings from its pioneers, and even the ways it's impacting our lives right now. But let's turn to what this means for us as individuals.
Yeah, that's really the key question, isn't it? It's easy to get lost in the big picture discussions, all the existential threats and societal implications. But AI's impact, it's going to be felt most at the individual level.
Absolutely. And we heard from some of you during the break sharing your thoughts and feelings. It sounds like there's this mix of excitement and apprehension, which makes sense.
Yeah, totally understandable. AI is powerful and has the potential to change so much. It's only natural to feel intrigued and a bit uncertain about the future.
So how do we, as individuals navigate this crazy, rapidly changing world? What are some things we can do to be more informed and empowered when it comes to AI?
I think one of the most important things is developing what I call AI literacy.
Okay, AI literacy.
Yeah, it's basically having a fundamental understanding of how AI works, its capabilities, its limitations, all of that.
So we don't need to become programmers ourselves,
No, not at all.
but we should have a basic understanding of how it works.
Yeah, just a general understanding of what's going on under the hood, so to speak.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we become more AI literate? Where do we even begin?
There are tons of resources available in the online libraries. You can find courses, articles, even documentaries that break it all down in a way that's easy to understand.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you learn, the less intimidating it all becomes.
Yeah, like with anything else, the more you know, the less scary it is. But knowledge is only part of it, right?
Oh, absolutely. AI literacy also means building critical thinking skills, specifically for AI. This means being able to question the information you're seeing, evaluate the source, and spot any potential biases.
Okay, that makes sense, especially now with deep fakes and AI-generated content. It's getting harder to tell what's real and what's fake.
Exactly. We need to be super critical of everything we're seeing and hearing online, whether it's news articles, social media, even those personalized recommendations.
Okay, so AI literacy is about knowledge and critical thinking. Got it. What else can we do to navigate this AI world?
Be mindful of your own data and how it's being used. We create so much data through our online activities, our phones, even those smart devices at home.
Yeah, it's crazy how much information is out there. It's
Yeah.
easy to forget that it's all being collected and analyzed.
Right, and oftentimes without us knowing about it, this data can be used to create these incredibly detailed profiles about us, our preferences, habits, even our personalities.
Yeah.
And then those profiles can influence our decisions, what we buy, what we read, all of it.
It's kind of creepy when you think about how much information about us is out there.
Definitely something to be aware of. But there are things you can do to protect your privacy, like adjusting your privacy settings on social media, being more careful about the apps you download, even using browsers and search engines that are focused on privacy.
So we need to be proactive.
Exactly. Take control of your digital footprint. And it's not just about protecting yourself, it's about shaping the kind of AI-powered world we want to live in.
Right. Our choices matter.
They do. The choices we make as consumers, as citizens, can influence how AI develops.
It's empowering to know that we're not just along for the ride.
Absolutely not. We have a say, we have a voice. Supporting companies developing AI responsibly, advocating for ethical guidelines and regulations, even just having informed discussions about the future, it all makes a difference.
So it's not about, saying no to AI. It's about making sure it aligns with our values.
That's it, and that's why it's so important for everyone to participate. Every click, every purchase, every conversation, it all adds up.
I like that. It's not hopeless. We have power here.
We do remember, the future of AI isn't set in stone. We're all creating it together.
That's a great point. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Go for it.
AI is a powerful tool, but it's just that, a tool. It's up to us, as individuals, as a society, to decide how we want to use it. So let's choose wisely.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged, everyone. The future of AI is in our hands.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.